Hi, my name is Ben Johnson, longtime viewer of the Young Turks, first time video submitter, and I would like to talk about energy and how energy is reported in the media. Now, my background is in public administration. I have a master's degree from the University of Delaware, at which I studied sustainable community planning and energy issues, and before that, I studied Russian language and international studies at the University of Oklahoma. The specific article I'd like to talk about comes from Time magazine from April of 2012, and it's titled The Truth About Oil. Frequent claims are made about the United States becoming energy independent. And lots of people like to talk about that and like to go on and on about how we have 100 years of natural gas and how we are now exporting gasoline products from refineries on the Gulf Coast and so on and so forth. So, in that spirit, Time magazine recently published an article called The Truth About Oil. And I say recently, it was in April of 2012. And this article left out, it was a front page article, and it left out multiple issues that ultimately leave the reader no more informed than they were before they read the article. So there's the front page of it right there. So what do I mean by the reader would be no more informed after reading the article as they were before? Well, one of the problems is that the article only mentions rates of production of oil 3 times in the full length of this 4-page article. Now, why is rate of production important? Well, as you can see from the chart there, that's a chart of U.S. crude oil production going back to about 1900. And one of the things that the article, one of the fields that the article talks about is the Bakken Formation in North Dakota. And one of the 3 rates of production that they actually mention that the Bakken Formation has allowed North Dakota's crude oil production to go from 98,000 barrels a day in 2005 to 510,000 barrels a day in 2011. 510,000 barrels a day sounds like a lot of oil. But if you look at the chart on the right there, you can see the blue line down at the bottom, the little one with the uptick there around 2011. That is North Dakota in the context of crude oil production in the United States. And that's only in the United States. And that's illustrative of the fact that 500,000 barrels a day sounds like a lot, but in the larger context really isn't that much oil. But, no graph like that was presented over the course of the article. They have some very neat maps about where some of this unconventional oil is going to come from. They have a nice chart about oil prices, and they have a nice map explaining where, or showing where people spend the most money on oil products by state. But they never actually talk about the real problem, which is rates of production. There's also another issue that they have contradictory statements about substitutes for oil. They talk about how, first off, 98% of the transportation in this country is run off of oil, and then they talk about how there's no substitute for oil, and then they mention that that there are actually, that wind and solar would allow for substitutes for oil. So that's fun. Now, the other issue that rates of production ties into is the issue of declines in crude production in various regions around the world and why that's important. So, as I note here, the Time article never mentions rate of consumption globally and never mentions rates of production. They talk about the difference between crude oil and condensates, and unconventional oil, but they don't really frame it. They don't put it in context. So here I've got a chart of all this information is available publicly on the U.S. Department of Energy's website. And so here I have a chart about where production was in 1980 for a variety of regions, the years where production was in 1999, where production is now. I just sort of picked 1999, I guess, because of the Prince song. So in that middle column, you also see what the rates of production were for these various regions when their rates of production maxed out. Sometimes that's referred to as a peak in oil production. Now, the reason that's important is that, as the chart shows, and I'm not trying to cherry pick here, I did leave out the Middle East for a variety of reasons that I can get into in later videos, but the real issue is that the article makes no effort to explain why we need to be going after these unconventional supplies. And the reason is that conventional crude oil production is on the decline in a lot of regions around the world. And in fact, there's some question as to whether or not we've reached a maximum of crude oil production globally.